So what about the idea of like self-sabotage? Like some individuals find that they try to do things in a certain direction, but then their own...
All right, well, again, we would assume by now that this would be relatively apparent as to what the answer is. Self-sabotage obviously involves belief systems about the self that dive into concepts like I'm not worthy, I'm not deserving, I'm not able, I don't belong, etc., 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 and therefore require some deep self-investigation as to why you would attempt to sabotage yourself from your own true self, why you would attempt to be something you're not. So the idea, again, is you have to look at those fundamental fear-based beliefs of lack of self-worth in order to transform that physical behavior, those choices of self-sabotage.
So that idea of like it's self-sabotage, but it's happening at a subconscious level, you know.
That's why you have to investigate and bring the belief into the conscious light. Again, if it remains in your unconscious, you have nothing to work with. That's why the investigation about what you believe to be true about yourself is so crucial. And thus paying attention to what the fear-based belief is saying so you can hear what it's really saying and realize how much of what it's saying negatively about you is nonsense. You have to do the investigation. You have to make the unconscious belief conscious. Now, it's going to do everything in its power to prevent you from doing so, because that's one of the ways that the negative belief perpetuates itself, is by making it seem as if you have no ability to find it. And it may use emotions to prevent you from doing so. I'm too depressed to investigate myself. I'm too tired to investigate myself. This won't actually amount to anything to investigate myself. I am a victim and always a victim, and therefore there's no point in investigating what these beliefs are. All of these things come from the negative belief. You have to see through that smoke and mirrors. You have to be able to understand that it's not as difficult as the negative belief is making it appear, that that's just an illusion. You have to know how these things work. That's why we explain the mechanisms of these things to you all, so you can realize it can be much easier than you think, because once you understand how this works, and once you understand how beliefs perpetuate themselves, you will understand why they're saying what they're saying to you, and you will also understand the illusion in it, that it's not necessarily a fact, it's just a perspective coming from a negative belief that's doing nothing more than attempting to continue to perpetuate itself, which is what all beliefs are designed to do, in order for you to be able to have a physical experience. Because if the belief systems couldn't perpetuate themselves in one way, shape, or form, there would be no possibility of having a physical reality experience, because it doesn't really exist unto itself. It only exists as a projection of your consciousness. The experience of it is real, but the physical reality itself is nothing more than a cardboard facade.
That's very helpful.
All right.
This individual says, I've had many experiences where I moved pencils like an instant manifestation in a way that didn't follow the laws of physics.
Well, it does follow the laws of physics, just not physics that you're familiar with yet.
And there was no intention of doing anything of the sort. It just like happened. So
yes, then for that individual, they have given themselves an opportunity through that experience of telekinesis to understand that physical reality is just a projection. The idea then is that whatever state they were in at that moment, every time they think about how that felt at that moment when that happened, puts them right back into that centered state of their relationship to the idea of physical reality as nothing more than a projection, which could, if used that way, if understood that way, for that purpose and that reason, put them in a state where they can allow themselves to, shall we say, shape their physical reality more effortlessly by simply knowing that they can always go back in that state, and that they are already back in that state just by remembering what it felt like to be in that state when they moved the pencil.
And
now, one moment. This is also an opportunity for them. That's just the way this individual chooses to do it, the way they choose to experience this synchronous idea of being in a certain state of being that can allow them to move forward in physical reality in a more effortless way, almost by, again, giving a perfect example of the surrendering of needing to be in control. So that as soon as you actually go into that surrendered state, feeling like you're not doing anything, that is actually the state of most control, when you don't necessarily feel like you're doing anything. That's the path of least resistance. That's what it feels like you're not doing anything, because you're not really expending an effort. You're actually in the center of yourself, in perfect balance at that moment, and when you happen to take yourself into that state, it shows you what's possible in physical reality, and it shows you that it is possible, because physical reality isn't real. It's just a projection of the state of being of your consciousness.